Welcome to a new episode of the Advancing Consciousness series with Franco Di Nicola. This is a place where people can come to gain further insight and clarity as to what is going on and how we can shift things on a personal and global level, while also accessing higher levels of consciousness and awareness. We bring this series to you free of charge so that many are able to access this information. However, if you resonate with what Franco shares and you would like to support his work, contributions are welcomed and greatly appreciated. A link is in the description and will be provided in the chat if you feel guided to do so. Also, we have many previous workshops, such as a couple of our most recent, Maneuvering with Neutrality and Alignment during this next wave of unfoldments, and Deprogram Clearing Empowerment Workshop. You could also join us in our membership program, Let's Talk About You, where like-minded people come together bi-weekly to talk about the topics requiring deeper understanding and clarity. All of these are available on Teachable, and we encourage you to check them out as they are great resources at very affordable prices to assist in better understanding this human experience. The Teachable link will also be provided in the chat and description. And lastly, don't forget to share. As the more of us coming together and creating a shift in oneself, the more effective it'll be to shift things globally. Thank you for joining us and being part of the change. Enjoy today's broadcast.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Advancing Consciousness series. We're in episode 51. Believe it or not, we've gone past the 50 mark. Of course, we've done more than 50 because some of the episodes were longer and they had multiple parts. But here we get together again and we play with episode 51. And with everything that's going on right now, we felt that this episode would be really instrumental for you to help you with some of the things that are playing out and some of the stuff that we are dealing with ourselves. Because, you know, with everything happening on the cosmic is one part, but on the playground we call Earth, it can look very interesting at this point in time. And many of us are going through a lot of stages of experiences within ourselves. So we thought, well, let's play with that today. So welcome everybody again. And we get to explore even further. So the episode today, we're going to be talking about who to believe. Who to believe and losing our perspective. What does that mean? Who to believe? Well, we have to understand that most of us, to one degree or another, and some of us fully 100%, are adopting beliefs and ideas and concepts and so forth, and we shape our life accordingly. It's not outside of us. So we end up using what is being shared to us as our belief that we navigate. Now, beliefs come in many, many different facets. The thing is, when we're looking at beliefs, there are different beliefs based on different clusters, or in this case, different groups and different parts. Like you can adopt beliefs that are religious-based. You can adopt beliefs that are from family dynamics. You can adopt beliefs from culture. You can adopt beliefs by genders and different locales in the world based on those genders. But we can also take on beliefs by the systems itself, looking at this is how life works. So we adopt those beliefs. And, you know, a lot of times for many, many years, we never really questioned our beliefs. There are people that have been questioning it for quite some time, a few decades in some cases, and some from day one. But at the same time, a lot of times the beliefs that were shared through education, through every medium of sorts, were just taken in without using any form of discretion or, you know, tapping into ourselves to see how this belief supports us. Now, of course, we have to understand that those adoptions, you know, did create a particular stream of experiences for ourselves, and it did serve us in one way or another. We can't say it didn't. Now, as things are changing, most of the beliefs that we've just adopted and utilized and staged our life, staged our connections, and actually shaped it to point of making certain choices based on those beliefs are being questioned. They're starting to become more unstable, the beliefs, and the question is there more? Is there something else? Now, some of us, have shedded a lot of those beliefs, and also perception started to question, not only tapping into ourselves, also looking at whatever was there. And I know I covered it in an episode where, if you drop the beliefs and you actually just see what's there, then you can see more. You can see more of what is available for you rather than a limited view. Because the thing is, if you have a belief, not only it creates a pre-construction of what that may look like or anything about nature, but there's another facet to that. It also, in one way or another, filters us, filters what we can see. So if you have a strong belief on, and many of us adopted it, a strong belief of something that we've taken on from whatever means that we've adopted, that actually filters not to see the big picture. We only see what the filter allows. So if you believe that something works a certain way, anything outside of that range looks odd, or in fact that it looks unbelievable, or you don't even see it and you don't even question it. So the thing is, like for example, if you put a lot of belief that the media, say the news for example, is accurate, and the information that you're receiving is for our best intention, and you have a strong belief with that and no questioning, then whatever is being said, or whatever is being shared, we adopt as truth. We adopt as that is fact, absolute fact, or they wouldn't be saying it. And this is kind of an example of what we take on, and that becomes a filter, but also a foundation saying this is true. And then anything that's outside of that would be considered a conspiracy theory of some sort, or the fact that it's fake news or fake information and so forth. Now, of course, many of us have gone through different stages where you felt that this was correct and this was not so correct, or not correct at all. But then we started to see things as we're going through the changes, and of course we are going through changes, very powerful changes energetically and otherwise, and it's kind of opening our eyes, and it's actually deteriorating some of these filters and belief systems that we've had. And then we start to see a little bit more of the other, so you start to swing a little bit more and kind of blend the two, and eventually you make a shift. But that doesn't mean that is totally 100% accurate either. Now, many of us have been brought up through religious streaming, and we've adopted those beliefs, and so the fact is that we shaped our life and so forth, and what choices we make and don't make, whatever, around those beliefs, and we don't question it. Now, there are people that have been questioning it for quite some time too, and then a lot of times they kind of step out of that state of seeing only what is being fed from one stream. So for example, if you're affiliated to a Christian religion, for example, then you're going to see it through those eyes. And there are, different ideas of how that actually works. Now, we won't even question the fact how it came about, because that would be another episode altogether. But regardless, we now say, okay, well, this is it, and now how does it fit into my world? And then you start shaping your world accordingly. The same thing with whatever you've learned with education. For example, you meet up with a professional, what we call professional, an expert, or somebody that has some credentials with numbers or digits, or in this case, alphabet at the end of their names because they have PhDs or whatever it is. And you say, okay, great. They must know what they're doing because they went through school. Well, you may have gone through school and you may have been taught certain things, and you've adopted that as accurate. And I've seen this with many students. I've seen it with many adults that saying, well, this is what I was taught, and this must be correct. So, with everything that's happening now, we've based all our lives on these ideas, these beliefs, these adopted concepts and perceptions and ways of life. Now, systems and otherwise. So let's move this over. So, when it comes to this, who to believe? Because, let me step one step further here. Right now, more than ever, and this has been elevating and increasing, intensifying over the years, where before the streaming of information was heavily dominated by one stream. That meant whatever that system, group, or whatever idea was the only thing that was the main thing. And anything alternate to that, anything outside of that, was a very minuscule amount of streaming that was happening. So we did not have alternative in medical and education and in news or media or anything of that nature. We really had a very small trickling of that coming through. Of course, that trickling continued to increase in flow, and now it's coming in larger quantities on many, many platforms and many, many versions of it. So what happens? What we have relied on, depended on, okay, of one stream being super accurate and anything outside of that is not, now we're having both. And in those both, they're not even just completely just two streams, they're multiple streams coming in with now opinions. Now, what happens to opinions? How does all this come about? Well, we have to understand that that's related to an example that you may have in your own life that we've all experienced and we are experiencing. We learn something, something outside of the box of the mainstream, for example. Now, we got a glimpse of it and saying, okay, this is what is. There's this. What is that? Well, it looks outside of it and it makes a little bit more sense. So now we jump into the bandwagon and saying, this is accurate, this is inaccurate. Okay? Now, that transition may not be complete because there may be content that may be perceptionally based, that is not 100% fully accurate of what's really happening, but there's an interpretation applied to it. And there may be judgment around it. There may be different opinions and viewpoints. Because as you're going through it, you will notice that your viewpoint will change from one and gradually go into the other. But if while you're going through those graduated stages, you say, well, this is it. Well, okay, then you start sharing and experiencing that, and then you find out, well, that's not quite it, there's this, and then there's this, and then there's this, and so this is what's happening. So even with all the stuff that's streaming right now from multiple sources, we have a lot of opinions and perceptions with blends of truth and skewedness of truth. Okay, now again, all of this is kind of assisting us in one way or another to be able to, dissect and decipher and to discover what may be there. Because as we're going through these stages, we're learning and growing ourselves. So as we're going through all of this, as we're going through these stages, we have to realize that, okay, I'm opening myself to receive additional information. And I'm open to this information, but I'm going to also continue to be open because I may not have all the clarity involved. And there may be other things that are opening up and other things that are changing within ourselves. And this is where the confusion comes in, because with the multiple streaming coming in, the question is, I don't know who to believe because they're saying this, they're saying this, they're saying this, and so forth, right? And so you have multiple viewpoints, multiple perceptions, multiple stages, because some of the people that are sharing this information may only have made some transition to that other higher consciousness kind of expanded view. So they're sharing from that and you're taking it in. So you have to look at it and say, okay, that's their viewpoint. This is what they're sharing. What is in there that actually resonates for me? What in there actually makes more sense than what I was receiving? and taking bits and pieces. So there's like a picking from the different streams. Now, there may be some streaming that may be closer to the bigger picture or accuracy, but we have to understand that all of them have great different levels of that. So you need to kind of have to pick through it. So when it comes to who to believe, that comes back to you. Because belief is really perceptually based, and beliefs do change. It's not consistent. If you're going into and say, well, I want to go into knowing, then you're tapping into a deeper knowing. But those knowings have levels too, because as you're going through the different levels of knowing, you're accessing levels of knowing that best matches your experience and the playground that you're playing with. Now, with all the energies that are coming in right now in such a powerful way, all the encodements, so we're going through physical changes, we're going through upgrades within the human entity, we're going through upgrades, even the soul itself, the playground, and other individuals we play with, including every single system that exists. So that's going to change things very dramatically, of course, in different stages. Now, some are going to stay hard and fast and hold on to one thing, where the other one is opening itself to be more flexible. The reason that you may even be listening to this right now, or doing more research in other areas, is because what you've adopted as a belief or as a way of life is being challenged within you, because it does not make sense, and then you can see something better. So what you're doing is exposing to yourself to other content that actually stimulates that level of resonance and that level of knowing within you. So this is kind of what's happening right now. So there's a lot of research and so forth, and it's not about who to believe, it's about, let me be open to receive different inputs and see how I can use bits and pieces to upgrade my current experience, my current journey. How can I use this for me to reshape my life so that it feels more in resonance, more in alignment, and I actually can be more of myself. And that's what's happening. So it's about matter of being open, but also using your own inner knowing. Now, many have not been accustomed to access their inner knowing because they adopted a belief that you don't know better, or you do not have the answers, or you may have different definitions and so forth that has been dictated from a collective, because there's always these perceived authority figures or authority that knows better, and we've adopted those ideas, and that comes from many, many streaming, including any of the groups and organizations and whatever else. And there are many organizations. There's organization in the educational world, in the governmental world, and in the medical world, and in the religion, and in the cultures, and there's many, many, many different so-called experts or authority figures that would know certain things, and then we put our reliance on that. That's great. If they know something, great. Let me tune into it. Let me be exposed to it. But at the same time, I'm not going to be just grabbing the whole thing and say, okay, this is my life. I'm going to look at it and say, okay, what really feels in resonance for me and what does not? Maybe there's a little teeny seed in that one, and maybe there's a little bit more there, or whatever it is. So you're going to use different resources so that you actually connect with that knowing and expand it, because that's the point. It's expanding it, because it is going to expand. And I'm sure a lot of you have noticed that your consciousness, your accessibility, your viewpoint expanding has been doing so for a while now. Some just are new at this and it's just blossoming in a powerful way. Others have been on it for a while and again it's blossoming. So what happens? You're accessing further knowing. Now there's a perfection to that. We're not there to hit instantaneous full access, because that's not how it works. We have the capacity to do that. We have the capability to do that. Is it of your highest service? May not be the case, because in a lot of cases, as you're going through the different stages, say each of these stages, you are accessing more inner knowing, more consciousness. But each stage is going to serve you accordingly on your journey and your agreements that you have made with others to play a particular role, and also the agreements you may have made on how to be a facilitator as the transformation that's going on from many viewpoints. Because you could say, well, I'm doing it energetically, I'm doing it through consciousness, I'm doing it through my actions, I'm doing it through my organization, or whatever that may be, or just the fact of just shifting your own personal life, because all of that is still very powerfully conducive. So this is expanding. Now, the trick here, it's expanding at a rapid rate, more than ever before. And each moment, as we're moving along, and here we are in 2020 and moving forward, it's speeding up even further. With the speeding up, we have to understand any cluster, for example, even what, say you're talking about media information, okay? Just to give you that thing. Just as an example, if you're tapping into the media information, as things are moving up faster and faster for us, we're starting to notice that there is less and less consistency, even though many of the outlets may say exact words, but the consistency, even their own energy of what they're putting into it and how they're presenting it and how they are enacting whatever they're saying, is becoming more transparent to see through it, so that in fact you shift away from the power that you've given to it, and it allows you to go into the tapping of your knowing and exploring that part. Because many of the ones that say, okay, we've awakened or awakening, have noticed that their focus on what is the mainstream stuff has reduced tremendously, if not all, in some cases. And now they're looking at other like-minded that are open to it, and that you outgrow that, but you start to create more and more self-reliance, some more and more self-reference. And that's what part of the parcel, part of what is happening at this point. So, and this is just an example, because there are many, 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 many different levels at this point that are happening in different organizations. What we have to understand, what is taking place right now is highly, highly conducive for us to shift away from just accepting what is being spoon-fed in a way to us, to self-empowerment, to self-authority, self-actualization of own self-guidance, rather than a reliance. Now, we are here to play together, absolutely. And we're all playing together in one way or another, no matter what position and role that you play, because even this, I'm just using this as an example, there's many, many levels, is still serving us, but it's also wanting to go through a transformation, and destabilizing and so forth does happen because of that. And this is the thing. So really all of it is still serving us, but it's not going, it's like a little child, you know, it says, well, feed me, feed me, feed me. But at some point or another, they want to do it themselves, because it's a lot, you know, they feel more empowered. They feel like, oh, I don't have to rely on anybody. I can eat at my own terms, and I can, you know, play at my own terms. I don't have to wait for somebody. I don't have to go to the speed that they're providing. And if I want to play while I'm eating, or I want to play with something else, I do it. So this is the same thing with us. We're going from just taking whatever is being fed to us or shared to us that isn't coming from many, many accesses, and we're going into to the point of whatever is being, you're going to start to look at and saying, okay, how does it feel for me? And then you start adjusting accordingly. So let's use some of my points here, since I've went through the trouble of putting it together. So with everything that's going on, the big question is, the big thing that's happening, many people are experiencing confusion regarding who and what to believe. Big unfoldment right now. Because of all this streaming, all of this information, and the contradictory information, and it is perceptually being shared in a sense, one perception or another, but one narrative over another. So meaning, okay, my narrative is this. My purpose is to convince you that this is the way to go, and this is the right way, and then one demonizes the other, and the other one demonizes the other, and you have this dance. So what I've noticed with a lot of people, and this is why we're having this episode around this, is because the question always comes up, I don't know who to believe anymore. I don't know what to believe, who to believe, because I'm hearing this, I'm hearing this, I'm hearing this, I'm hearing this. This is good, this is bad, bad, good, good, bad, and it's swapping all over the place, and we're creating a lot of confusion. So what I can say is the confusion at this point in time that we're dealing with is perfect, because confusion leads us to slow down, observe what's being offered, and then for us to take the bits and pieces wherever it's there for you to use, to construct, to shape your reality on your terms from a bigger perspective. And this is the thing. So the confusion is instrumental on so many levels. So is it who and what to believe? No, it's a matter of, and you want to go outside of the belief anyways, because belief is temporary. It's not permanent. How many beliefs that we've had over our lives that has changed? Why? Because those beliefs were adopted based on the information that was available at that time, the state that you were in, how many filters you may have had, and whatever choices you may have had. So I believe that the world was this way, and that people act this way, or whatever it is, or that science says it's this way, or religion says it's this way, and the health world says it's this way, and we adopt those beliefs, and we go and play the game with those beliefs. But of course, what's happened? Right now, a lot of beliefs are getting challenged. A lot of beliefs are just dissolving. Do we create new ones? Yes, we do. But it's just a stage. It's not the ultimate, because what we want to do is tap into our own knowing. Now, we have to understand, like I said, the knowing will expand. So it's not going to be, it's not going to say, well, I'm going to tap into my knowing, for example. Let's move this down. I'm tapping into my knowing, and then the knowing is going to collapse. It's not. It's just going to build on it. So beliefs come and go. And a belief can lead to knowing, for sure. That's the option. And how you use it absolutely has that potentiality. But at the same time, a belief usually is quite structured. So you take on a belief and it becomes kind of a box. So the belief, when you start outgrowing the belief, then you take the next step where you start to dissolve the beliefs. And you start to step outside of that. But a lot of times what's happened, we take on another belief, which is kind of a little bit more expanded, but it isn't. Where when you're talking about the whole idea of knowing, what happens is usually knowing may create what you can call some form of limitation, but the limitation is expandable and it's not rigid. So the thing is, it just builds on. So this just kind of moves and creates much more opportunity and much more accessibility to that. So that's the thing. Now, where's the knowing come from? Well, knowing comes from within us. We are all source. We're all creators. We are our own creation. We're the observer creation. We are source. Source meaning access to all existence. Now, of course, we're going to tap to the experience that we want, or the resources of consciousness that we require to play the game here. Unless you're choosing to leave the game, then that's different. You're going to access something different. But so when you're tapping into that knowing, it's the best knowing that you have available that you can integrate and utilize on planet Earth while you're in human form. So it's all about that. So when you're going into the knowing, it just continues to be fluid and expansive and so forth, and it just continues to build. And that's the thing. So as we're going through our experiences, you're going to notice in your life that when you got to that level of knowing, and I've saw it in my own experience too, but many people are in that position, and you maybe yourself, where you get to a knowing and saying, okay, this is how the system works. But, at that point, that's already a huge leap for you from that blocked up version that was available before. And then as you're going through these experiences, you'll notice that, oh, I just accessed a little bit more knowing, so I can actually upgrade my experience even further, and I can actually play in a different way. But you're not dissolving that. You were going to say something?
Helen is just commenting that she says, Franco, last year my life went back to 0 point. And everything I learned over the past 30 years, I feel I know nothing.
Yes, perfect. Because when you get to nothing in the knowing part and 0 point, now you can start tapping within yourself and build from that. So you're actually accessing pure potentiality or pure sourceness, and now you build accordingly. Now the building is never rigid anymore. Everything is fluid. Even your timeline is fluid. So it's a matter of going, okay, I no longer need to hold on to any beliefs because the beliefs have all dissolved, and you're now exposing yourself to, say, information or whatever that's triggering and building that knowing that you have already within you. Now, yes, sometimes what we end up doing is going to what you call the 0 point, where nothing is there, but that is completely everything at the same time. Like source itself, for example, is nothing and everything. Everything as pure consciousness that's also expanding, that has massive potential of creation. And it does. This is why all these playgrounds exist, all these expressions in what we call form, and why, there's planets and solar systems and galaxies and universes and so forth. Well, those are all creations. Those are all different levels of creation. So, but that is just accessing from 0 point, say, what do I create from this building material that I have, that I can do anything I choose to do? And that's the thing. So, yeah, you may have a point of crashing, and I don't mean crashing. You get to that point where whatever you've built your life on before no longer sustainable, and it's just open now. And that's where you can start all over again, but very differently, very rapidly, very free in comparison to anything that you've built before. Now, the one thing we have to keep in mind is that we're not building anything rigid. We're not building anything that is permanent, because anything that we're doing now has to be completely malleable, fluid, and is to be used and expanded along the way. This is why there are no rigid timelines anymore. Because you want to create something completely fluid that you experience each moment with, and plug in each moment what you want to create next. But the next is only a moment later. It's not a week, a month, or a year later. You may have certain intention or may aim a certain directions to do certain things, and which is great, that's fine, but you have to remain fluid, because in fact it's going to change. I'm not saying always, but the majority of the time it changes, it upgrades or alters a little bit in some way so it matches where you're accessing. if you're going to lock into something and try to remain rigid, you'll find it's going to be uncomfortable. And a lot of times when you get to that point, it's unstable, or the fact it doesn't even happen, or because things have changed so much. Because it's not just us. It's not like, oh, it's just me. There's many versions of ourselves playing together here. So each one is influencing each other. And I'm not saying influencing in a way where you don't have control. No, it's influencing in the fact of how we want to play together and what each individual is playing a role of. These are all aspects of yourself. Everybody's an aspect of yourself. They're all playing different roles. This is why there is the individualization expression, which is still mapping of the whole. It's like a picture. It has many pixels of different colors and shapes and so forth, but putting them all together makes the full picture. So if you take one out, it doesn't complete the picture because there's going to be something missing there. So this is the thing. We've created it that way where we have the individualizations. This is why even our souls have signatures, so that it operates in a slightly different bandwidth. You're talking about the human entity, same thing, signature, different bandwidth, the physical expression, different frequency, each one, slightly in some cases, but there's always a variance because it's like a slot machine. Not that it goes in that way, but it's not random. Each one coming together creates alignments. And these alignments are necessary in one way or another to actually create or compose that new experience. This is why it's very rare to have the exact consciousness of a physicality and the exact stage of that human entity and the same exact soul coming together again. It does come out once, but for it to come back again, I have not ever heard that it ever happened, because you have to understand that each one has to create a variance so that you do not create the same experience, even though each one is learning and growing. So if somebody says, well, I'm going to do the maximum I can, then I'm going to come back exactly the same in one way or another and just carry on. Well, it's not going to be possible, because the thing is, you're going to arrange it, and it's kind of known from within. You're going to arrange it differently so that you create a variance that will build on that. So it will, for example, the body will build on itself, meaning that now that it has a different version of the human entity and a different soul, that it's going to be able to do things that it wasn't able to do before. And the same thing with the human entity. Now the human entity does sometimes, at times, I should say, it maintains part of whatever it learned from the last life, and it may shed certain pieces of it that would have been unnecessary for where we're at now energetically and in the state of consciousness, but it may retain it. This is why some of these human entities bring in some really advanced skill sets. Could be art, could be music, could be science, could be mathematics, could be whatever, right? And because they bring that along, and then of course it's getting a different body, which the body itself has a certain expression and frequency, but then another soul comes in, and that soul may be bringing different levels of consciousness or different experience or set of experience from previous incarnation on planet Earth, and in most cases previous incarnation on other planets, on different dimensions, and different levels of consciousness and so forth, and then it plugs in. So that's how you create the blend and the ratio, or not the ratio, but the blend of creating something new. So the thing is, we're never ever just coming back exactly the same, because even the reincarnational part, because sometimes there are people that reincarnate and recognize each other. They have different physicality, they have different human entities and so forth. And I've seen this in my own life, but I've also seen it in many lives over the last 35 years that I've been actually working with people, but also even prior to that, where you see even if they brought a good chunk of what was there before, it still has a variance in the physical, a variance in the human entity, or it can be the variance of the soul. It can be lots of different options that are available. So when we're talking about it, yeah, a lot of people are going through confusion. Now, we've all had a certain level of confusion over the years. But when you start questioning the exact systems that are out there that we have put so much trust, so much energy, so much focus on, of what we have learned, what our parents may have shared, what our family dynamics may have shared, what the media has shared, what the educational system may, the working environment, the friendships and partnerships and whatever else, and made those adopted ideas, concepts, and belief systems as a way of life. Now, as you are shifting, your consciousness is shifting, every part of you is shifting, a lot of it gets challenged, and it's breaking down those adopted ideas of perception. So it's going to feel confusion. And now, I don't know who to believe. Well, the key here is drop who and what to believe. It's about allowing the information to come in, see it for its clarity, and then utilize what you choose or resonates the most for you. And what is resonance? It's feeling it, feeling how it feels most alignment. Now, even with feeling, you have to remain flexible, because what feels good or much more elevated right now may lose the same capacity of elevation later on. And it's not because you didn't resonate before or the resonance changed, is the fact that you're ready for the next step. So what you're doing is building on it. So now the next level is going to feel more in resonance. Now, there's going to be occasions that you may feel resonance to take a certain path. So you take that certain path, and it has a sequence of experiences that later on does not resonate for you anymore. And you're looking at it and say, well, why did I take this path and now it doesn't resonate anymore? Well, you have to understand, it resonated here, but it doesn't resonate there. What's the difference? The difference was that, for example, let's just kind of use a sketch here. So here you are, and you have, say, different choices. Now, here you're making a choice, and you now go down this path. So you're going along this path because this most resonated for you. It felt. So you may have gotten into a relationship, or you may have taken on a particular job, or that you may have connected with certain individuals, or the fact that in some way, somehow you made certain choices that kind of shaped your life. You're going here and you get to this point here, and now it doesn't resonate anymore. Did you make a mistake? Absolutely not. So now you're looking at it and say, what resonates for me? Well, there's going to be other options. In some cases, it could be one of these other options down here. But this part of the journey, this here, was necessary. And this is why a lot of times I've heard people say, well, I resonated, I took that path and it gave me a bumpy road. It didn't end up being the permanent thing that I was looking for. Yes, that's true. But the reason you resonate, you needed to have that bumpy road. I'm not saying that's always the case. I'm just saying some cases. You needed to have the bumpy road, or you needed to get into that relationship, or you needed to go down that path. Because while you were having that experience, you were expanding. You were refining yourself, you were expanding, and those prepared you for something bigger, grander, and a new direction. So the thing is, you may say, well, I got into a partnership and it gave me all these experiences, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted. Well, it was what you needed. Maybe not what you wanted, but what you needed to open you up, expand you, question yourself, to be able to kind of find yourself in there, even in the most negative, polarized state. If you look at some of your experiences that you've gone, sometimes people say, well, that was a horrible experience. But when you really look at it, that experience may have launched you to access higher consciousness, may have launched you to understand things differently, or may have launched you to, dissolve a lot of the stuff that you put so much power into it. So you got to see the perfection in all of this. So resonance will change. But it's never a resonance that says, oh, I resonate with this, I go down this path, now it's a blind. No, it prepares you for something else, and then you now tune in, because the best thing is to stay in tune as you're going along, so that at some point you may not have to go all the way up to here. You may be okay there or just there, because you're going to get it. Especially if you're an observer, you don't have to have multiple experiences before you get to the point of, oh, I got it now. For example, you can get in a relationship, and I've heard this many times, where people say, well, I keep getting into one bad relationship to another. Well, why do you create that? Well, why would you make it in alignment with that? Well, at that point it felt right. Well, it could be a lot of times ego, could be a lot of times programming, could be a lot of times belief systems or whatever else we adopted. But at some point there was a resonance to it, and say, okay, I'm going to go down that path. But the thing is, do I have to have multiple? No. But if you go into one and it triggers certain things, and say, wait a minute, what am I looking at here? How am I feeling in this relationship? How is it serving me? Because you have to look at it, how this is serving. What's the message within it? It's not about, oh, I made a mistake, or I just picked bad people, or anything of that nature, or I picked somebody that's way better than I am, well, whatever story we attach to it. It's a matter of, okay, here I am in this relationship. First of all, what am I seeing? What am I learning? What am I experiencing? And how is this serving me? Then you're just basically going each step, and you're looking at exactly the gift that you put there. It's that Easter egg that you have buried there, and now you're going there because of it. So you take out that gem, take out that so-called Easter egg or whatever with all the beautiful diamonds on the inside. So this is kind of what you're looking at. So the resonance can change, but it's just prepare us to go down that point. So right now, you may resonate to follow a certain path or take bits and pieces with that. That is constructing. It's like somebody building a house. They feel drawn to get the blocks or the concrete or whatever it is to make the base or to make the foundation. Then, of course, they're going to shift after that to say, I need wood now. And then later on, they need drywall and insulation and brickwork and whatever else. So, but you can't go to the roof without all the rest of it. So this is the thing. So as you resonate, you're basically building yourself. And that's how it works. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, with so much information in circulation, it can be quite challenging. Absolutely. There is, and that's why I was saying that in the beginning. There's a lot of information coming in. It's not there to confuse you. It may look that way, but it's not there to confuse you. It's to stimulate you, to kind of give you, instead, because look at it this way. Let me clear this out. We're going to get rid of the box and ourselves in that restricted state. So, what are we looking at? When we put much attention, focus, non-challenging state of just receiving what is being streamed to us. So here you are. This is you, or all of us. If you didn't get it, I'm not much of an artist. Actually, no artist at all. So you're now receiving streams of information. Now, you've got stream from family. So you got a stream from family. You got a stream, let's put that down here, from education. You got a stream from media and all the other sources. There's many, many different sources. So we're having these streams. So what do we do? What were we doing? We take that and say, okay, I adopt it. That's the only stream that's available. That's the only thing I understand. This is where I'm going to put my focus. Yes, it's building your life in one way or another. Same thing with education. That's the only stream I'm receiving. I'm going to adopt it, plug it into what is there. What I'm receiving from the media. Media meaning that what the movies represent, what television shows, what radio, what all of this stuff, music, whatever it is, every certain form of media, as magazines or whatever else, kind of giving you an idea what life is like. Okay, so you're just taking these streams and you're kind of handpicking and building along the way. So this was how it used to work. It's still available, but what's happened? We're having multiple streamings of versions of this. Now, it may not be coming from your family per se. They may be holding certain things. They're changing too. But what's happening is there's alternate information coming in that represents what a family unit may be or what it is. Education is exploring because we're doing self-research. We're doing more than what the conventional educational system provided. And the media, we're having many, many, many different resources coming in at this time, which sometimes people call alternate information or whatever it is. So what's the purpose of that? Is it to challenge us? No. It is to kind of break down that this is it, this is 100%, this is 100%, this is 100%, and then build around that. That's being all challenged. So that now we're opening multiple streams, not only in the media itself, through education is changing, of course, because we're now accessing different education, which are experiential and so forth, that people have gone out there and played the game. Of course, we still have the old stuff, but also the newer stuff. So what is all of this information circulating is stimulating us in such a fashion where we are breaking out of those complete limited streaming that we had before, so that we start to take the power away, the focus away from all that we did and saying, this is it. No, we're now looking at, there must be more. There is more. Let me look at what else is more. Let me look at alternative ways of me receiving this information so that I can create more flexibility, more resonance in whatever I'm going to create. So a lot of this information that's circulating is doing that. It's breaking down the rigidity of our belief systems and programming and conditioning that we've done, so that we now are open to further. But the other part of all of this information circulating in such volume, it's also refocusing us back to our inner knowing. Inner knowing, which is basically tapping into ourselves. This is what we're doing. We're tapping more into ourselves. And we're using our own feelings. I'm not talking about emotional, reactive feelings. I'm talking about a feeling within yourself and say, this feels best for me right now. And you have to use the word right now, because that can change. Because, like I said, we're building, we're growing, we're expanding, and so forth. So it's going to continue to upgrade and build along, and the feeling of where you're drawn, what you want to play with, who you want to play with, or whatever you're going to do is going to continue to change. So you're tapping into your inner knowing, the feeling, the true feeling part of yourself. The true feeling of yourself, which is not polarized. There's no right or wrong, good or bad. There's no bad gut feeling or bad heart feeling. It just shows you very clearly that one option provides this other option there, but this feels best. And this is what you want to feel. You want to say, well, I got two paths here. Which one feels better? Well, if I'm going to go with this one, great, I'm going to go with this one. And I'm going to stay attentive to how it feels, because at some point it may change. Here it comes to this point, and now it doesn't feel the same. So you're basically going to choose a different at that point. But you're using your own inner feeling, knowing, and so forth. Now we have several different knowings. We have the physical part that has an innate consciousness. It will assist you best as possible to feel how it feels to have a certain experience. So you can be consuming certain foods and exposing yourself to different things, and the body's going to give you a feedback of what it is guiding you on a physical perspective. And again, we use that loosely because that's how we refer to a physical respect. What resonates to the body of what you're consuming, because the body is upgrading its frequency, upgrading its operating system, and would like certain things to come accordingly to be consumed that would be supportive rather than create more resistance or create something that throws you off balance. So that's the physical part. Then you got the gut feeling. That is your human entity experience. The human entity experience has reincarnated as human over and over and over and over and over again. So it has a lot of knowing what and how things play out and how it actually feels to play on this playground with that. So you're going to have gut feeling. Now sometimes you say, well, there's a awkward gut feeling. You want to tune into it and ask your higher self when you're tuning into your gut and say, okay, what do you guide me at this point in time, or what do you want to show me that you're getting my attention? Because it's about getting our attention. And the same thing when you're connecting to your heart and seeing yourself feeling from the heart, then that is accessing your soul. So you're going to be able to get information from that and also whatever it wants to show you at this point. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I was answering something.
Okay. All right. So we're going into that. So back to so much information. It has several folds. Yes, break down all of the different rigidity that we may have created within ourselves and created as limitations within ourselves. But at the same time, it's always refocusing us back to tuning into ourselves, because we chose to be the navigators of our journey. Okay. How does it provide us with the opportunity to push us and tap into our own inner source? And that's what I was just saying. Because in one way or another, when there's confusion and you can't, what seems like you can't get answers outside of you, you go within. And that is one of the main purpose of it. It's like, I can't get the answer, I need to connect with myself. Because even if somebody's sharing with you what they perceive, in most cases it's their own perception from their own life stream that may be different than yours, or they may not be at a level that would be most suitable for you at that point in time. So even when you have well-meaning, loving aspects of yourself or people, in this case, could be family, could be friends, could be partners, could be anything, coming in and sharing information about what they're seeing, you have to look at it and say, okay, they're sharing with me their perceptions, their observation, and so forth. Now, it may be expanded way more than what you've been experiencing, and that's great. And you're now looking at, how does that resonate for me? How does that match with where I'm at and what direction I'm going to go at this point? So it becomes a thing where no matter what's coming in, you're still always going back to yourself and say, what feels, resonates best for me right now? And it's always about right now, because that's always changing. So it provides us the opportunity to push us into tapping our own inner source. It's never outside. Now, there's going to be things where maybe you're not able to fully access the full expansion of your inner source. Then you're going to be exposed to certain things that will actually trigger you. And it doesn't always have to be the contradictional part. Like, for example, what we're sharing right now is to stimulate your own inner knowing. Is it contradictory? No, it's not designed for that. What is shared is not. It's just giving you an a higher perspective, an advanced perspective to kind of trigger. So you will use the parts that you are ready to use, but it's really stimulating your own knowing. See, all of the stuff we do with these episodes is to stir up, wake up, stimulate, connect the dots within your own knowing. That's what it's about. Now, for some people, it may seem like all new information. Yeah, from a deep perspective, but a lot of times the mind will negate that until it starts to, oh, I'm exposed to this, and it's kind of opening things up so that the mind is a little bit more receptive to the information and also receptive to what your inner knowing does. Because a lot of times what happens, specifically ego that operates very intensely for most of us, will kind of hijack the mind in a way. And even when it's receiving inner knowing, and this is why focus on your heart, what do you call it, your gut, or what we call your human entity, and your physicality, rather than just using the mind. And as that's coming up, then of course it's streaming to the mind for sure, and it starts to kind of make adjustments so that it streams more of the information that is higher than what the ego is just throwing at you, because the ego again is designed to reflect the old version. So that's kind of how it's providing. So you have stimulation of your own knowing, and it's the same thing, it pushes you to tap into your own knowing, because it's not about giving yourself away. Even what we're sharing right now, it's not about giving yourself away to the information. You allow this information because basically it's providing you something that you require, and using your inner knowing, because everyone's on their own journey. Each one, as much as this information is very expansive, you may not be ready for all of it. You may be ready for part of it. And this is why it's great to repeat it, because it continues to stimulate, and then you really start rolling because you start to learn. Most of us have lost our own broader perspective to some degree. And so true. Because that was it was part of the human experience coming here, to kind of lose that higher perspective of yourself and to experience a lower perspective, meaning that you took on beliefs, ideas, concepts, and programming, conditioning, and so forth of what the game of Earth was for a period of time. Some have lost it completely because that's what they wanted to experience and they wanted to play the role that way. Some had lost a portion of it, and now it's coming back into play more and more. And, some of us had only lost a very small amount and always had that higher perspective, but at the same time knew that, hey, I got to still play the game for temporarily until, things get upgraded on your own way of playing. So we have to acknowledge that we've lost a lot of our own broader perspective, but that is coming back and it's activating within you. You have made the choice to do so, or you wouldn't be listening to this or many other resources that you may have tapped into at different times, because everybody's bringing in certain bits and pieces of it. Because you want to bring back into alignment your own broader perspective. Because when you see it from a broader perspective, you see for what's there. That you're not the experience, you're not the playground, you're not the physicality, and you're not, subject to what the game is. You see it for a game. You see a bigger perspective of yourself. You no longer see the game in polarization. You no longer have judgment for the game. You see no restriction in the game. You just choose to experience part of it accordingly to where you're at. So you're basically, from a broader perspective, the right and wrong, good and bad, and all of that stuff really does not apply. But not only that, when you're looking at it from a broader perspective, you're now seeing the bigger picture and how it actually serves, how we can actually bring it in more fully, and how we can disseminate it, how we can clear out certain parts of it, how we can introduce new things and so forth based on the stage. So you're in designer mode. You're not only in observer mode, but you're in designing mode, conscious designing mode accordingly. So this is the thing. So as much as we've lost a lot of that, to whatever degree, because everybody's different, we're bringing that back in. Our own broader perspective is what we're doing right now. Because with the broader perspective, we're not going to see that the game is only what we see and experience right now as it is. We see the game, but we have a deeper understanding of the game. We see the flexibility in the game. We see the opportunities in the game. We see how we can upgrade the game. how we can upgrade the human's experience game and also the playground game, and how we can upgrade and shift any part of any systems within the game, any rules that have been applied in the game. None of it is rigid from a broader perspective. So you see that bigger view. Now, you may limit yourself to the level of view so that you don't get too much at once, and then you introduce more and more, but you see the bigger view, and now you see the opportunity, you see how it serves, and how you can utilize it more fully than before. And that's what the purpose of that broader perspective. So when we are looking at the broader perspective, for example, what we hear and what we see, we're actually able to see it more fully, what the agenda may be, what the intent will be, what options are there, who's saying what, who's saying the truth or lie, whatever people like to call it, or what is most advanced or less advanced, what keeps us in our old version or old playground versus what we have now. All right, so let's introduce something else here. There has been more reliance on external sources for perspective and direction. Yes, all of us have gone to the point where, we've been putting a lot more reliance on what's happening in the world, who's got information, do I do this or don't do that, and so forth. That was kind of the way we chose to experience it. And that's changing for us right now. So we put a lot of reliance on authority figures, a reliance on so-called experts, reliance on different resources like educational system and all the other systems that exist, governmental systems, and all the layers within the governmental systems that provide what we call safe, security, this, that, whatever it is. We put a lot of reliance on the playmates and the systems and different resources of information. So right now, a lot of that is being challenged so that we actually, take bits and pieces of it, use discretion in a very powerful way, and then build from there your own reality, because every reality is yours. It's not someone else's. You take bits and pieces of other people's experience, bits and pieces of whatever may be available there, but you're still creating your own reality. So the thing is, a lot of people say, well, I want to change my life. How do I change my life? Well, if we have a better government, that'll change my life. If we have a better system, that'll change my life. If we have money, that'll change my life. If I have the right partnership, that'll change my life. Or my life will be better. If my family stops giving me a hard time, life will be better. I mean, I'm just giving you some examples here. And the thing is, we're relying on the external to shape our life. And that was kind of okay, and it was pretty cool for the longest time. But is it now? Does it really feel in resonance to you now? That's where the difference comes in, because things have changed. You've changed. So we're relying less and less and less from external sources to provide us the perspective and the directions. Like, you're not looking for somebody else to give you the answers. They're going to give you their experience. They're going to share with you what theirs. For example, with everything that's playing out right now, regarding this particular virus, whatever you want to call it, that's been plugged in. And there's many perspectives of that. And we're relying on certain experts. Well, we're relying on these particular experts because, we're giving authority to these experts. And the fact is, I'm not going to question anything. Whatever they say, they say. And then, of course, you're having others in the same field, but on the other side, because they've had certain experiences and they're seeing it completely different. So we have this information coming in. So here we are. We have two, possibly 3 and 4 other different perspectives. And we're relying on that and say, well, I need to decide if I'm going to take that needle or not, or if I'm going to, wear this or not, or that if I'm going to stay away from people or not, I'm going to use that. I want to use the science. I want to use this, or I want to get experts from other medical experiencers that have, kind of tested things out and kind of been observing, whatever. So the point is, you're not going to just follow it blindly any longer like we used to, and many are still going to play that for a little while, and you're going to start looking and say, okay, I'm opening myself up to receive various sources and to see not only what resonates for me, what actually even makes more sense. So you're now, instead of going into confusion because of overload, you're going in, okay, let me see these sources coming in. Let's see which one makes the most sense to me. What feels most aligned. For example, somebody says, okay, you got to do this, this, and this. You got to isolate, and you got to wear these things. You got to go for these type of treatments or whatever, and this point. And the other one is saying, hey, wait a minute, our body is actually quite evolved, and it can do this and that this is not quite the way it works, or whatever it is. And you say, okay, let me get the different spins on this, or the different viewpoints and different understanding, and say, okay, this is mandated, and they're saying, okay, we got the science backing us up, or whatever it is. But this one is saying, wait a minute, we're the actual facilitators here playing with this, and we've noticed something different. And then you have other source coming in and saying, hey, like, we've been really looking at it more closely, and we're noticing that it's not quite what is being said along the way here. So what does that do? What it does for us is that the reliance on this source is not localized and isolated. And you're not even using this anymore. You're opening yourself to receive the different inputs and viewpoints to see within yourself what feels most in resonance. And that's what a lot more people are doing. And I remember when all of this was introduced, and it was just like you tune into it, you get to see a little more and say, oh, they're saying this and they're saying that. And then you kind of see that what is being said and what's been said here, this has next to no value, unless you want to play that game. This has way more value, but there's more to it. And then there's the bigger perspective that comes in too. And the bigger perspective looks at, what is the main purpose here? Because one perspective is, you're getting information that is incorrect. Yeah, you can look at it and they say, yes, it is absolutely incorrect. Yes, it may have a certain narrative. Yes, it has a certain intent, for example. But at the same time, when you're looking at a bigger perspective and say, okay, that's playing out, but how could this be actually used? What are the purposes behind this? Could it be pushing us? So remember what I said? This is you, and there's this big box that we're playing. Now every time something new is introduced, the box gets smaller. So the box is getting smaller. And now you're in what they call locky-down. Trying to not be uncreative here. So here we are. It's pushing us even further in a smaller box. Why? Sometimes when you're this far apart, you don't even notice the box because you get comfortable in there. Now, of course, it's getting harder to be comfortable even in a bigger box, because really we're going into a space where there is no box. But when stuff is introduced and fear is used, fear, safety, safety. So when we're looking at that and saying, whoa, this box is getting real here. How do I deal with this? how do I deal with this? I can't see my family. I can't go out freely. I got to wear this gadget or this thing over my face. I got to do this. I got to do that. How free am I? It doesn't even feel comfortable. Doesn't even make any sense to me, and so forth. So what it's doing? It's accentuating this. The twist behind that is to see yourself in the box, so that you actually recognize the box, and then you can make a new choice to say, thank you for offering me the box, the smaller box, because every time there's a new one, it just makes it even smaller. And you finally say, hey, wait a minute, I'm not compliant, agreeing, and wanting to support that box that you are presenting me any longer, because I want to step outside of it. So then you start taking the steps individually and expansively in the collective aspect of breaking out of the box. The other thing is, with that, is not only noticing the box, it actually slows you down, because when things are perceptionally good, or at least somewhat good, and we're busy, we don't pay attention to a lot of the input that we have within ourselves. Because we put all our effort, all of our attention on the ego, because the ego is pretty persistent. Let's call it what it is, AI, ego. And it's making up story, busy. Let's do all this stuff here now. When we got this, then we could do this. We need to keep up with whatever, family, friends, work, whatever, and then we'll play. Or the fact is, we got to play, and then we don't do this, and it's going to go on. And then it's going to give you multiple schizophrenic ideas of how life works. We've got to be careful of this, but you should go and play it here. You got to do this, you got to do that. You're right, you're wrong, you did this, whatever it is. So you can easily get caught up on that. So now, all of a sudden, comes this box, and at first, you're going to go, oh my God, restriction, fear, safety, you're jeopardizing other people's lives, blah, 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 whatever it is. I'm just using this as examples here. So now you're looking at all of that, and you're saying, okay, I better tune into this and spend some time with myself. So what it does is slows you down from this. Yeah, it's going to still give you that, but you're less in motion, so that you're spending more time. You're spending more time in this box, so that you can actually see what the box is providing you much more clearly than before. So you see how it serves. So a lot of people got to spend some quality time with themselves, with their families, with whatever's playing out, and to slow them down. So that was the bigger perspective of it, to do that part. But the other part of the bigger perspective is to see that I've given a lot of power and authority to different organizations and different streamings, including what the media is presenting and so forth, so that in one way or another, I use that as a resource. But now you're starting to question it and say, do I want to live life on those terms or on my own terms? Now, you may adopt and say, okay, this is the terms I have to adopt right now. But then you start questioning yourself, and you start to feel, no, those are not my terms. I've had people that say, if I have to live in this small box, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in living. I'm not interested in living in that box. I got a taste of it. I got to see a bigger perspective of it, but I'm no longer. So that, shifts you to seeing all of that and expand. So when we're looking at a bigger perspective, you see all the layers. So when you really look at it, this whole thing that unfolded, as much as they made it into this huge, disastrous, destructive, dangerous thing, that's what was kind of agreed and needed to a certain degree to push us even further in the box and see that box, and to accentuate fear, so that we come to the point where we want to face the fear and dissolve the fear, because that's an illusion created from here. It's not our natural state. It doesn't matter what anybody tells you. And I'm not overriding what I'm saying. I'm just going to tell you what it really is. but it's up to you to feel it for yourself. I'm not here to tell you drop whatever. And then fear is not our natural makeup. Survival is not the natural makeup. Being safe is not our natural makeup. That was all imposed in the inverted matrix, inverted 3D, inverted 2D, from this and from whatever was streamed from the inverted matrix.
You meant being unsafe is not our natural makeup. You said being safe.
Oh, that we have to be safe and stuff like that. So yes, it's being unsafe, or the fact that we have to give focus to safety. Because once you realize from this bigger perspective that you are the designer, the navigator, you orchestrate every part of your experience, what you plug in, what you don't plug in, what you do and what you don't do, what can compromise your physicality or not, all of that is presented for you. So you get to see all of that, and then you say, why am I putting attention in this? First of all, it's an illusion. Second of all, it's not really what it is. I see that I am the designer, creator, and so forth. So why would I put so much power into that when I can just change whatever I choose along the way? So this is the thing. So we've now have gone from all of that external stuff, and we're going into internal and really expanding our bigger perspective. So this has been changing for many people who have been experiencing a shift and expansion within their own consciousness. So what's going on? They're shifting from reliance from other perceived resources or experts and so forth to take what those perspectives and directions are. And what's been changing for many of us, everybody to some degree or another, but not everybody's been exercising it, but for a lot of other people, that's been shifting for them, because now they're coming more into that self-realization, okay, that I do not need to have reliance and external resources from others. They're not going to tell me how to live my life. I choose to live my life. Yes, I'm going to take bits and pieces of information, see what resonates, plug it in, adjust accordingly, because yes, the game is the game. The collective is the collective. What we see on the big screen may have some parts of how we can influence your experience. So you have to look at and say, how I choose to navigate in the screen that's not changing to the same degree I may be changing. So if you're going to go play the game, you're going to see the game, and the game is not really changing to the pace that you're changing, but you are plugging in all the layers so that you, in fact, you're operating within that screen, but not lost in the screen, for example. So it really shifts away from it. And so that's why it's been changing. Now, why is it changing? Because first of all, we're reactivating more of our self-guidance. Our state of consciousness has been increasing. What is consciousness? It's self-awareness. Awareness that it supersedes any concept, belief systems, perceptions, and so forth. It sees the bigger perspective. It sees the bigger picture. It sees exactly how all of this is and why you're even here and so forth. Now, we're not introducing it all at once, but what you're doing. So when we're talking about we went from inverted 2D, inverted 3D, inverted matrix, and now we have organic matrix, and we still have bits and pieces of the inverted 3D and 2D, but we're also stepping into the organic 3D and 5D. Like everybody says, there's a consciousness shift. Not everybody's saying that, but anyways, a lot more people are saying it. There's a consciousness shift. What is? We're just accessing more consciousness, more self-awareness, more options, and a greater expanded perspective, and to see ourselves as more of the creator that we are, so that we can go into the driver's seat of our own creation, of our own reality. And it's not outside of us any longer. Now, we have chosen to play with each other. We have chosen to take on other versions of creations, but that's what we're changing. So the thing is, as you're going through it, that's been changing, because more and more of that level of consciousness has been coming in, and of course it's changing you, your focus, your direction, how you process and see things. So now you're seeing it bigger, grander, and an expanded perspective. So that is changing. And I'm sure you've noticed it within yourself. So, however, there's still quite a transition that needs to take place before it becomes commonplace. Yes, it's moving faster and faster. There are some cutoffs, we've agreed, from soul levels, from human entity levels, and physical levels. So even though it's not adopted as commonplace right now, all of this stuff that's going on that we're talking about, where we're tapping into ourselves a little more, expanding that part, it's not common yet. But more and more, it's becoming commonplace for more and more people. So you are going to find that certain groups, like-minded people, like some people call it, that when you're with them, you see your expanded view more commonplace. For example, you're watching this right now. You're going to find the people that are being attracted to this and so forth are aligning more and more to this information so that it expands you. So that's becoming more commonplace in smaller groups. There's not 100,000 people right now watching. It's not. It's a much smaller group, and the replays and so forth will be a smaller group. But what we're creating is a commonality of self-commonality within ourselves to be able to access that. So as much as that we are going through a transition, and the transition at this point in time involves everybody to go through the transition, that the clusters, the groups, and the connections that we're making, it doesn't matter if we're scattered all over the world, because we're connecting to that energy, that consciousness, and stimulating ourselves, that we're already creating pockets of commonplace all over. And that just continues to expand like a ripple effect. And it will eventually become a full commonplace throughout the whole planet. And that's the intent. And that's what we're working towards. Not that we are struggling to do it. It can seem that way at times. But it's not. We're not there, but we're moving towards it faster and faster than ever before. I know you wanted to say something about that. You don't notice it going any faster?
Oh,
is that what you're telling me? You're telling me that you want to hold on?
No. That time's going by quicker and quicker?
Well, time, transitional part, where it's becoming more and more commonplace. Because commonplace, where you're no longer accessing other resources as our governance, you're using your own.
Yes. True.
She said true, but I don't know if she's so convincing at the moment.
It's very true. We are requiring to go with him because there is so much chaos and confusion.
I'm going to move this one over to the next page so I can make a mess on another.
Just erase some of that.
That's true. But this. That's true, and we have.
Is that much more?
Yeah, probably. But a lot of it is repeat, so I'm going to go faster. Go
I
ahead.
have some questions, but some of them aren't necessarily to do with everything here, but I'll wait till the end, okay?
Okay. So, we've covered a lot of this stuff, so I'm going to go through it a little faster. Much of the information circulating is distorted and aimed at a specific narrative and agenda that is less than conducive to the human's direction. As much as that is the case, it's still food for us to be able to use. No longer adhering to it, but at the same time. So, for example, if we had to look at all the information that we have adopted during our life, you have to understand all of it was created pretty well under the banner, under the operating system, and it is operating system, under the inverted matrix. And our adoption of what we call or inverted 3D, and I'm just going to do the 2D part. That's not the best two. See, I haven't practiced on the 2D part. No, I got to do it. That looks reversed, doesn't it?
That's pretty good.
Okay. Inverted 3D and 2D. all of our systems, most of everything that we've learned from family, from different organizations, different systems, and so forth, were created under the inverted matrix, inverted 3D. Why do we call it inverted? Because everything is backwards. So what is really what's playing out, what is true, is actually deemed as false, and what is false is deemed as true. You see this all over. Everything works that way, even in the medical system. So any new discoveries is bashed instantaneously and showed as, what do they call it? Not false information. What do they call it? I don't know. There's names for it. I can't think of the name right now. Yeah, I can't think of it.
New discoveries?
Yeah, new discoveries. You know, alternative. But the thing is, a lot of times it's like false information, whatever. And it's made that way, even though it's closer to the truth of how things operate. Now, of course, those things are expanding anyway. So you'll see that the narratives that come into place and the agendas is all about maintaining the inverted matrix, even though the streaming is gone, even though this is no longer supported. None of this is no longer supported, but it still plays that. Why? Well, because there's these horrible people that want to do that. Not really, just teasing. What it says, basically, they're pseudoscience, yes, thank you.
Not from me, from Andrew.
Andrew, thank you, Andrew. I'm glad that we have some people that, they remember some of these things. I always try to plug them in, but I don't always remember to exactly put the word. I see the picture in my head, but I can't put the words to it. Okay, so we're going to see narratives and agenda that is less conducive to the direction where we want to go. And that's been accentuated even further. That's why I was saying the boxes are getting tighter. Restrictions are coming in more and more. You can't go out and just do whatever you want to do. You can't do this. You can't do that. Rules, laws, new laws coming in, no restrictions, new demands on you, more expectations from you and whatever else that you need to, get yourself locked up in this endeavor to survive or whatever that may be. As much as that is being pushed and pushed and pushed, which was all created around this over and over again, is for us to finally get to the saturation point and say, hey, we're not playing this anymore. We're done with this game. We're done. So, this is why inner guidance is more important than ever before. Because yes, we're being pushed to move forward. So you're now going to look at whatever the narrative may be, whatever is being shared as a narrative, you're going to look at it and say, hey, you know something? This is not really what I'm choosing to put focus on. This focus I have here, no longer. Doesn't matter what the narrative is. Now, of course, from a broader perspective, you're not going to see them and demonize them or anything like that. Because there's a lot of different agendas that have been exposed by many, many people that see, yeah, the agendas are real, the intention is real, the action is real, the action is actually taking place. But guess what? We're starting to realize it more, and we're making the choice on a collective scale how far it goes. And we're going to let it go to a certain degree to push us back a little further. But at the same time, it becomes more empowering for ourselves. Look at all this stuff with the lockdown and everything else that's going on. How many more are saying, no way. I bought it the first time. I'm not interested. We're not going to do this social thing, distancing or whatever. We're not going to wear this. We're not going to do that. We're not going to support it. And more people are demonstrating, letting their views known. They're now researching more of what really is happening or what is the truth about what's going on rather than whatever the narrative agenda may produce. So guess what? It's pushing us to tap inside and say, hey, We're not going there, we're not supporting it. Now, as we're doing that, more and more are getting on board. It's not just you pushing this. More and more are doing that. I'm not going to draw it more and more because it's going to take me a little while. So, more and more. I'll write it out. How's that? Then drawing a bunch of stickmans. More and more. Okay, so more and more are starting to realize it. Look at the size of the demonstrations, for example. It's growing. Yeah, people are still getting caught up in the polarized world part of it, but at the same time, more and more are saying, hey, we're not buying in to this. So you see how it's serving. And you also see the changes, because once upon a time, that questioning, that alternative viewpoint that we have inside of us, which is the inner knowing, it was not as prevalent as it is now. So, it's vital to realize, because we can easily get lost in blaming, condemning the narratives and the agendas and the role players and so forth. We have to realize that everything supports us in some way or another. And these are all the things I said. It helps us see the boxes so we can choose to get out of the boxes. It lets us see a version of ourselves, like even people pushing our buttons, whatever it is, because a lot of this pushes buttons too, where you don't feel free. You feel that you're governed by fear, whatever it is. What it's doing is pushing. So it's serving. It's always serving. So the thing is, if you stay focused on how is this serving me, what is this showing me, how do I shift this, and what am I realizing about myself, and what am I realizing about the game? Because the realism of the game is being challenged. The game can seem real, but the rules, confines, and so forth may have been real for a while. And when I say may have been, we've agreed to experience it as real, but now we're not experiencing it no longer real. It does not match us, so we're not going to support it. And this is the thing. So this way we don't go into the disempowered state, because that is easy to do so. It's so easy when we don't realize that everything is serving, and we're starting to say, well, these are the bad ones, and that we got compromised and so forth. How many of you say, well, we got duped, we got pushed into some negative states and so forth because of these evil people. They just played roles, like we all play roles. Yes, we may be playing on different spectrum of the roles, but we're all playing roles. So by realizing that everything is supporting me, then you put the focus on how does it serve me? Of course, it's how it's supporting the collective too. How is it supporting my family, or the different groups that you're in? Well, yeah, it's pushing the buttons. It's allowing them to feel the confinement. It's showing them that world does not match. But the thing is, when you focus it back to you and say, I'm seeing the bigger picture here, and how am I going to utilize this? How can I now transform it? How can I transmute it? How can I use it in one way or another? Not only to advance myself, to tap more clearly to myself, but how can I also be a powerful contributor by just doing those things within myself? And some will be feeling compelled to share it, to do whatever, but never going in to change anybody. So when you're looking at that everything supports, you're not restricted, you're going to be able to expand it. And like I said before, we cannot demonize any information, but to use our own guidance to shift through it and see how it serves and how it's conducive. That make sense to you? Mm-hmm. Okay. Just in case, time out and say, hey, you're making shit up. No, if you demonize it, you limit. You demonize it, you polarize it. You demonize it, and you're now going into a disempowered state, because now they're more empowered than you are. This has more power over me, or whatever it is. So it's not about any of that. It's really, when you don't demonize it, you can see the beauty of it. When you don't demonize it, when you don't make it right, wrong, good, bad, you see the bigger picture. You could use the bigger picture. You can do amazing things within it when that demonization is not there. You're not polarizing it, no right, wrong, good, and bad. Look at what happens to a lot of people that start to open their eyes about what's going on in the world. What is the first thing they do? They're looking for who to blame. They're looking at who's wrong and who's right. They become a victim the moment they do that, because now they're looking at the victimizer and trying to condemn the victimizer because they don't want to be the victim anymore. Well, the victim, victimizer, or any part of that is all made up concept. You can experience it, what you create an illusionary version of it, but at the same time, see the perfection, because they're just playing the role. That way you can see how it serves you and is most conducive. What serves and is conducive. You're never going to have an experience that is in one way or another not serving you and it's not conducive, even when it pushes you against the wall. True? Mm-hmm. You don't have to agree with me. You can say whatever you like. Ultimately, where are we heading? Ultimately, we are to tap into our own resources, allowing our self-expression to transform the human experience and the world. That's our ultimate goal, is to tap into our own resources and allowing us to self-express. We're all different in one way or another. We all have taken on to play a particular role, to bring that grandest self-expression, that's always expanding anyways, to this playground. This playground is not to make everything the same. It was never designed for that. It's to create individualized expressions that advances the whole collective. Individualized expression. It's like that picture I was saying. Every piece of that puzzle, like we all are, has an integral part within the big picture. And that picture, so for example, each one of us is instrumental and key. Even if you're an extra or that you're playing in one polarization or another, you're still instrumental. But of course, the thing is that all these pieces coming together makes a bigger piece, that the next piece of it belongs to the piece of the solar system, which again makes a bigger piece that is a piece of the galaxy, or at least our quadrant, and then that makes a piece that belongs to the whole galaxy, and then into the universe is a piece within the universe, right into full-blown sourceness. So that's the thing. What we're doing is now ultimately going into our natural state, tapping into our own resources, because that is the best self-expression you can do. When you're tapping into yourself, you go into your genuine beingness. You came here to be a self-expression. You came here to be a beingness while playing with other aspects of yourself, while playing on this playground. And it's important to use your own resources, because that facilitates in a powerful way to advance the human experience and to advance the human playground we call Earth. I think this is the last one, girl. There we go. The full reliance on external sources can only take place. So for us to rely fully on external sources can only take place in the loss of our expanded perspective, when we lose connection to that expanded perspective. And that was kind of an agreement for a while, but now we're bringing it back in alignment, while at the same time directing us to self-resonance and the reactivation of our own resources. So as much as we've lost ourselves and put all our focus on external sources, look at it this way. Let me share this with you. A child is not looking, when they're first on the planet, they're not looking at others for external source. They came here to play on their terms. That's it. We're all that way. We came here to play in our terms. What can I do? What can I experience? What can I taste? What can I play? What can I knock over? What can I do? I like to have taste. I like to have feel. I like to have smell. I like to be able to hear. I'd like to do all of these things based on my term. And I want to play with other aspects of myself on my terms. That's what it starts off with. Then we get conditioned and programmed as part of the experience and so forth to rely on external sources. Even to get food, you don't rely on external sources. You kind of, hey, I'm bringing it in. So it could be a mother's breast, it can be other forms of food, whatever it is, to help you move from one place to another, or to clean your bum, whatever it is, right? We're not really creating a reliance. You're just commanding it. Hey, I'm hungry, feed me. Hey, my bum's dirty, take care of it. That's what you're doing. But it's still not relying. It doesn't even see the thing about relying on external sources, because it didn't lose its full perspective, expanded perspective. Then, of course, what do? We go through life being told how to play the game, what to do, what's this, what's acceptable, not acceptable, and we start to lose access to an expanded perspective, and our focus goes on external sources to tell me how to live my life. What is acceptable and not acceptable? How can I, get their attention? What game I have to play, and so forth. So what happens is we shift from internal self-guidance to requiring external sources and losing our perspective. But now we're gone to reversing. We're reversing. We're now looking at going in self-reliance again, reactivating our own resources, our own guidance, our expanded perspective to see the bigger picture. That's what we're doing. So we're actually going back to the childhood version as an expanded version, with a lot of experience in between, and going through the polarities. A child just commands things, and it's there. Not that we're going to be playing the command, but we're going to come to realizing, hey, what I want to experience, I'm going to bring it in. But that opens us much more powerfully. I think that's where we're going to stop there. So let's take up your questions. Let me see if I had anything else that I missed. No, we're good.
Okay, so Helen's asking, Franco, what's going on now? Feels like a past life I had, and it was very frightening. It's bringing up the same feelings.
Okay. With some of the stuff that's going on right now, energetically and otherwise, and then there's a lot of things that, that are playing out that may bring up old memories. Now, the body has certain memories that it carries at times. Your human entity is going to carry certain past life memories too. And so does your soul. Now, the soul's is kind of a different view. If it looks very human, the past experience, then it's really from the human entity and sometimes from the body. If it's something human, but it has a different tinge to it, that could be your soul that's having a past life. Now, what's happening? Sometimes these things are not finished. And when I say finished, it doesn't mean you have to re-experience it, but it hasn't cleared out. So it hasn't neutralized. It hasn't zero point. So you're going to have certain memories triggered that may be from a past life that the body may be projecting, but most of the time it's the human entity or possibly the soul. So the point is to allow those as you see it and bring up whatever brings up. It could be bringing fears, concern, it can be bringing up old memories, it can bring up, restrictions and whatever else. And the reason it's coming up is because it wants to experience it. So this is the thing, is to be key to allow yourself to experience it with no judgment or anything like that, or no fear about it. And then to kind of see what's in there. What's the benefit in there? What's it showing you? Okay? So maybe in a past life you were tortured restricted in such a way. So it's just painting a box where you couldn't be yourself. Now, there may be reflections in your life right now that you cannot be yourself. So it's saying, hey, I'm going to show you that was a little bit more intense, because that one there, you spoke out, you got tortured, you got burnt, you got killed, you got whatever, or you had a lot of what I call kickback or something of that nature, because a part of that is still playing out in your life, or it's still active within yourself, and now it's time to show it to you so that you actually make a new choice and you clear that all out. So yeah, could it be scary? Yeah, sometimes there's lots of fear involved in it, lots of survival stuff going on. Could be whatever it is. So see it for what it is. Give yourself the opportunity to just observe it. And when I say observe it, be with it. Sit through all the emotional stuff that it's going to trigger and whatever else. And if it's going to trigger fear, let it be. Just sit in the fear, experience the fear. Because the moment you allow yourself fully to experience the fear without fighting the fear or being afraid of the fear, because we can, yes, have fear on fear by being afraid of the fear, allowing yourself to experience the fear actually may accentuate, may give you a pretty powerful sensorial experience, but at the same time it starts to diminish after a little while. And then you want to look at it. Okay, what was the storyline that was playing out there? What was going on for me to feel that way? And then you could look at, oh, I felt like I spoke out and I got in trouble, or I was not free to be myself, or whatever it is. There may be multiple reasons for it. So you want to look at that. So you want to tune into that and say, okay, how am I seeing this playing out right now in my life? Okay, so you can look at it and say, oh, I'm seeing a version of that restriction, version of that fear, or version of that limitation in my current life now. So you want to visit that and say, okay, I'm seeing it now. How do I want to shift it? First of all, yes, you're going to acknowledge it, appreciate what it's provided you up to this point in time, even in that past life, and then really blast it with love and appreciation for what it provided you as an experience. Yes, the ego might say it's polarized, it was a bad thing, or whatever it is, but that's the ego's perceptual component to kind of keep you all bound up. But drop that out too. Say, nah, not interested in the right, wrong, good, bad component of that, which the ego mind is going to do. Your higher self, any part of your higher self is not going to say right, wrong, good, bad. It's just going to be an experience. Some of the experiences may be labeled and defined by the ego as good, bad, right, wrong, and it may create a certain level of intensity, but that is just the label and the definitions that have been applied. So you're going to basically see that, I'm not interested in plugging these labels or definitions on that. So when you allow yourself to see it, then you can say, okay, how do I choose to design it? Use piece of paper and pen, bigger the paper the better. Write out the different things because it helps you stay on track, because the ego is very good in distraction. It can take you off. You start off with one thing and it throws in something else. But when you have it written and you follow along the way, every time the distraction comes in, you can kind of refer back to that, which you've just written, and stay on track. This is kind of one of the tools they use to help you look at it. So if it's showing up for you, it's presenting something for you. It's not there to somehow take you down. Sometimes the ego will kick in when it sees that, and then it makes you feel, oh, that was a bad thing, or that, you didn't have the power, or you have to be careful, you can't say anything, or you can't make your own choices because it can end up the same way as before, or whatever it is, right? Okay? Does that make sense to you? Mm-hmm. Is there 2 cents you want to throw in from your own personal experience?
I haven't had that experience quite like that. So
you haven't had that experience before. Okay.
All
right.
Not that I can relate to at the moment.
All right.
So
next question.
Next question is, this is from Danielle. Mm-hmm. Who is the I that decides what combination of human entity and soul to come back? Oh, yeah. Who is the I that decides in what combination of human entity and soul to come back?
Okay. So there's multiple I's in this case. There's an I being that human entity. So that's how do I break this? Let's move this over. There's your human entity. There's your soul. There's your body, the innate body. Then there is also the factor that comes in, whatever the family. And when I say family, there's several levels of family. First level is the parents, and it could be one parent, even though it involves two at this point in time. It can be your siblings, it can be your extended family, for example, all the different extended family components. So, the first thing is, the soul decides for itself if it wants to come back and take on a particular physicality to advance itself or to offer a conduciveness to the changes that are occurring. So first, the soul decides, okay, I'd like to come back. The human entity does the same thing. I would like to come back and take on a human form and to express and experience and to advance myself and to advance the collective human entity, because these are all connected. So your soul is also connected to your soul family. So it's not just individualized soul family. A lot of times it's also called the oversoul, and so forth. But, you know, there's a lot of different things. So the human entity and its collectiveness. Oops. Collectiveness, probably not the word. And then, of course, you have the body. The body is an expression of Gaia, and it says, okay, I want to come in a certain point. But when this all happens is, first and foremost, a set of parents come into the equation and saying, hey, we want to produce a family, or a child, for example, a physicality expression. So within the family, if there is a family part of it, or it can be individualized with a temporary partner or whatever. Now, if it's going to come into a family dynamics, it says, okay, we're going to introduce another playmate into the family. The external family, extended family, or whatever you want to call it, extended family. Extended family says, okay, yes, we can have another playmate coming in, and we have. So each one of these will have different reasoning that it wants to plug in another playmate. Now, the physicality that will come through the parents at this point in time will be an expression of, an extended expression from the combination of the family, parents, I mean, and then also an extension from what the family provides, because as long as there are more than one member involved, it will take part of that as an option. That's why you can see, well, I say, hey, look, I look like Uncle George or whatever. Or I have certain traits from Uncle George. So some of that. And that's all plugged into the physical component of it. Now, but that only creates a list of different options and availabilities and so forth. So all of this is kind of agreed upon and say, okay, this is what we're going to produce, but that doesn't stop there. Then the soul, the human entity, says, okay, what is going to, where can I be best of service? Where can I have the best expression? Where can I learn the most? Where can I actually facilitate in a powerful way? So it's going to search for a body that's connected to different opportunities along the way. So you now create, once it's selected that, it creates the first level of combination. It says, okay, now the body itself, before even the human entity comes into place, it's not just the body, the location of the body, the gender of the body. It also looks at the cultural stuff that's extended from the body and so forth that comes into the equation, because it's not only just the body makeup, it's also what they're going to contribute and how much that may support or possibly cause it a little bit more of a challenge. So the human entity takes that into complete consideration. Okay, so now that you've had your perfect match for this, say, okay, you know, this particular body with this family lineage and so forth would be best conducive. The soul comes along and says, okay, I'm choosing to take on a body because I have multidimensional experience and possibly several experiences or maybe numerous experiences in human form, and I want to experience and play a particular role as a representation of the individualization, specific signature, and what the soul family, or what we call the oversoul, would like to also work through my soul. So that particular soul will turn around and look at what combination of bodies available, where it's from, whatever it is, with what human entity is going to come through. So it basically says, okay, now sometimes the soul makes the decision further, but the soul at this point in time will find the body that's best. Now the soul doesn't just jump in, because first of all, let me back up a bit. The human entity will communicate with these playmates and say, hey, this is what I have to offer, and this is what I'd like to use in the body part. And it makes sure that there's an alignment and agreement to all of this. It's not going to be outside of it. It's all in agreement. So no human entity will impose itself on any of this. So there's an all agreement. And the same thing with the soul. The soul will communicate with the human entity, will communicate with the body extension being all of this, and says, okay, this is what I'm coming to express. This is what I'm choosing at this point in time. How can I be of service? What would best serve you? Because we're doing this together. I am contributing and I am receiving from the contribution, meaning what I'm receiving as experience and whatever role. Also, the body itself also, I just want to refer, it's also communicating with Gaia. So Gaia as whatever that expression would be through that family dynamics. So that's another part of the equation. It plays probably a little bit less than all of this stuff. So you see the I is a makeup of combination, which is all you anyways, but it's an arrangement. So there's a lot that goes involved in just taking on a human body. Even a drop-in will check with the family, will check with all the different parts. Can I come in and take on the body since that particular soul leaves? So a particular soul that may have embodied, gone through numerous years or shorter period of time, whatever, or a long period of time, says, okay, now I'm leaving, but all of this is still functional. Can I, as a drop-in, I want to drop in as a new soul to take on a particular physicality with and this is my offering. So it checks with all of them for what would best serve. And when we're talking about that, it's not only what best serves with Gaia, because that's the other part, it's what is for the collective also. Because the thing is, if there's going to be a soul or a human entity that wants to play really low vibration when a higher vibration is required, then it also has to check on a collective scale. So there's lots to it. That would probably be a whole episode. Go ahead.
Okay. So
now that I confused her.
Yeah. Carla wants to know if the soul has different components. And Lexi wants to know if when the human entity is not having a physical human experience, is it merged with the collective, or is there a middle dimension to linger in without form?
Yes.
The soul has different components?
Okay. Let's do the human entity first.
Okay, quickly.
Okay. The human entity itself, how did you say it again, that part? Can you just repeat that part?
Is it merged with the collective when
Yes.
it's not
Okay.
physical?
So the short answer is yes. So what it does, it goes through a process. Once it stops embodying, it will connect with the collective, do a review, and may have specific entities, human entities, that will take on the role to help them guide on what it can do or cannot do, or what would be best beneficial. Not that there's going to be a restriction to say, okay, this is for like a human entity will carry a lot of the skill sets of being a human. So it will help purge what no longer serves the collective. We don't need to express this any longer. We don't need to give power to this any longer. So we're going to purge that. However, the technical advancements or the learning that we've gained from the human experience is going to be beneficial, so we're going to keep that in play. So for a period of time, it merges with the collective, or merges with the collective, the human entity. Some human entities will not do that right away, and even though that's becoming less and less doable because of the energies not allowing that anymore, in the sense because it was a collective agreement that automatically goes into, but sometimes what people call ghosts or human or entities that are on the planet. Now, of course, there's multiple entities. You've got human entities. So say a human entity kind of loses his body and loses the soul and really doesn't want to go and merge with the collective. It was given allowance to hang around for a while. Okay, so that's why sometimes people go in and clear entities. What they're doing is helping them to kind of go back and connect to the collective from that individualization in non-form. Now, sometimes human entities will stay in non-form to support the other human entities in bodies at this point in time, playing a particular role for only a period of time, and eventually it will merge to the collective and then choose to go individualized again through an agreement that they work out that what would be best at that point in time. So it could be in non-form for a period of time, and in most cases now. So a lot of the process of going from individualization to harmonization, purging, and whatever else, and in preparation to it. What was the soul one?
Is that, does the soul have different components?
I'm not quite sure of the question so much.
Is the soul different components? Is there different components to a soul, or is it just the soul?
No, the soul, you know, is a facet of sourceness that has a specific signature, that has a certain range of experience and a certain range of accessibility of itself, so that it can have experience and record it, and it continues to grow. Souls have soul families. They come from clusters. So there's an oversoul and 23 other souls that are connected to that. A soul has a twin soul, which is basically each soul has a signature. Each signature operates at a certain frequency, a certain range of access of consciousness and utilization of that consciousness, so that it actually works in harmony to have that experience. So a twin soul would be two souls that have exactly the same signature. That's why we call it twin soul, because it is a twin. Sometimes it's referred to twin flames. I'm not sure why they call it that so much, except that when I was asked that question years ago, I said because they can really create some powerful flames with it. But anyway, it's from the playing together. But so we have, and then it's also a stronger connection between the two, even though one may be embodied, one may be bodied, and one be non-physical. So there's physical, non-physical, or they may be in different ranges of physicality on the one planet, or they may, be family members and so forth, because you can have what you call twin souls can be in family, or they can be in non-form or form on a different dimension or a different planet, and so forth. But you still maintain a certain level of communication. But there are 22 other in the cluster. So you have the what they call the oversoul, which is connected to 22 other souls, and these 22 other souls, yes, they have replications too. Lots start to merge. That's kind of a longer story to explain. But so there are different facets. So when you're tapping into, as a soul, you have the soul that has its own individualized experience, but it also taps into their twin soul. So they're bringing that level of consciousness, that level of experience into it. So that looks like multiple facets of it. But when it's tuning into the oversoul, it has 22 other souls that it taps into. But that's only the first level, because we do have other levels on top of that. So there are many facets of it. But at the same time, you have to remember it's still all source, and we just created multiple facets of it itself. Go ahead. And then there is a merging that happens once it's completed. Well, you know, the 22 actually merges and so forth along the way. Same thing as twin souls. They do become one in non-form for a period of time. Sometimes they do take on form, but usually not in the lower dimensions, only in higher dimensions. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, so because we want to wrap it up here because
Yes.
it's getting late.
I'm just looking at the time now.
Quickly, can multiple souls stay in the same body at the same time period? Yay or nay? I think they
If
come
so,
and go.
it's temporarily.
Yeah.
It's just one comes in, just kind of get a feel for it to see if it's a good swap over at some point or another. But no, what looks like multiple souls is that when there's an established connection to some of your soul families, and it may look like. Now, sometimes what looks like is a multiple soul would be a merged soul, or the fact they have a stronger soul. But in actual fact, it's usually one soul, temporarily visitation of a second soul or something of that nature, but that's it.
So I'm just for schizophrenia. Is that multiple souls or is that one soul splitting around? Like what's going on there?
Well, there's two parts to that. There's several parts to that. When you're talking about the schizophrenic part, what happens is you have a main human entity. You have a main human entity. And sometimes you got these looser entities, human entities, and sometimes they're not quite so human, that will try to operate within the one body. The home base is still this one, for example, or as an example. This is the home base, and then you're going to have other entities that want to express through that. So that's one version of it. The other is the ego.
So the entities
creating
aren't
multiple
souls.
personalities. What's
The
that?
entities aren't souls. They're just entities coming in and out.
They are a soul in a sense. It's not the multidimensional soul. It's what we call a human-based soul. They're going to have their own personal expression. So sometimes that's why people feel possessed or whatever it is, because there are lower vibration human entities that want to express, and they will seem like they shift tremendously because they kick in when this one's not paying attention, or the fact that so they'll go. So you can have multiple, and there are people that work with that in clearing out other entities that are not the one that really is supposed to be running. So there's that. Then there's the ego that can fragment into multiple versions of itself. And it can create multiple versions of itself. So that's why I've called it sometimes schizophrenic or bipolar ego, because it will create multiple personalities, and then depending on the situation and so forth, it can express in that way. So there's that and there's that. When we're talking about the souls itself, a soul is a little bit more conscious of not taking over. Now, in saying that, there are souls, or physical representation that have souls, that will give permission for another soul to stream through them, which is something I experienced myself, because there's a connection of like 84 souls and they stream. Not that they have full reign. Any of them have full reign. It's kind of blended all together. Does it cause schizophrenic? No, it's conducive, and it actually works together.
Like a channel.
Yeah, it's like a channel, but a harmonious. They work together. So, yeah. So that's what occurs when it comes to the soul aspect. There's more to it, but we'll have to go another time. Was there any other
Okay,
question?
one more quick. I think you can answer this quickly. So when someone has an out-of-body experience and it's experiencing another dimension or is watching the body, the witness is still a combo of all the different parts according to your,
Yes, pretty well.
Okay.
Pretty
All
well.
right.
Pretty well.
I think that's it. There was one more. I don't know if you want to answer this
Go
it's
ahead. Let's look at it.
can you say something about 11:11 tomorrow? Anything we should know?
Yeah. Hide.
I knew you were going to say that.
Well, whenever these sequence of numbers come in, it does open up an energetic and consciousness portals. It will open it up in you, but it also opens it up on the collective scale, and it does affect the planetary, so it can experience a powerful surge, which is one of the things that will happen tomorrow, depending on where you are in the plan. The 1111 is not hard and fast, as a lot of these numbers. So, meaning that depending on what time zone you are, you may feel it a little before, a little bit after, it doesn't matter. And usually there may be a level of concentration, but it does usually expand for more time. So it starts to lead into it and then leads out of it. So there are combination codes that open up certain access to codes, certain streams of frequency that may be directly connected to you. It may open up another compartment. These are all things that do happen to some degree or another. Some will be more intensified than others. A compartment of your own accessibility or even function of your brain or mind at this point, because the mind actually presents that. It also unlocks, activates within ourselves to be more receptive to certain light codes that the sun is already providing, and also that's coming in from the galactic galaxy itself as the galactic stream. So also Gaia gets activated in certain parts. So sometimes Gaia will actually amp up, which will happen again with the 1111. So it will ramp, and we may end up, from what I'm seeing already, an accentuation of the Schumann. But it's not just the accentuation. It does bring in another spectrum that sometimes can't be read because it just shows up as just energy fluctuation as frequency. But there are sub-frequencies within that. And so there are many different things that happen when these combinations take place. And we are in a very intense month. We are in a very intense following months to come. So there's a lot of preparation for that. A lot of things that also will occur is there's going to be blips in our functionality too, within ourselves, which will create an alteration within ourselves. But we also will see blips in the systems around us. Some of the blips will just bring it up to the next level so that it actually works a little smoother. Some blips will actually create a breakdown so that some of the layers of filters or veils, if you call it that, will be more transparent so you can actually see more of what's going on. Depending on where you are on the planet, whatever is happening there, it may bring a little bit more clarity. It may bring a little bit more seeing the polarity world or seeing behind the scene a little bit more. But you'll also see a little bit more destabilization while you become a little bit more stable. But sometimes if your ego kicks in and it may seem destabilized, but it's just intensification of changes for you. So yeah, do I say it's going to be a nasty ride? No, it's going to be another step into our expansiveness with a possibility of some resistance from our old versions of ourselves, but that's only to extend it further. You were going to say something profound about the 1111.
No, I was not, honey.
So my projection to you is not working? Okay. Thank you. She's a wisdom of information, but she's very secretive of it. Okay, are we good?
Yeah, we're done.
We're done.
Wrap.
So thank you guys for coming together. Thank you guys for being open. Thank you guys for really taking part of all of this. Share, 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 share. Subscribe, join newsletters, check out our podcast that's also available on YouTube and Facebook under the group Advancing Consciousness Podcast. If all of this resonates and you really feel compelled to support us in our work, feel free to donate as you choose, if you choose to do so. This is all made available free, but again, we're still playing in the money world, so any support is always appreciated, and I'm super grateful for all the people that have supported. It gives me more time to focus on creating daily podcasts and all the work that's involved with it, because we're doing it all ourselves, and also these episodes in the Advancing Consciousness series. And we are, of course, working on a 2-day workshop coming up in December 5th. All the details, we're just finishing the write-up, so we will be sharing that very shortly, so that you have the choice to register, which will be available live streamed and also as video and audio recordings. So that will come about. Did I miss anything that I need to share at this point? Okay, check out the other episodes. Just immerse yourself. This just is there to trigger, expand you, and become a grander aspect of yourself. We're doing this together, so each one of us that illuminates even further will, move forward in a powerful way the changes that we have agreed to do so, and make it as smooth as possible, with some bumps and bruises if necessary, only for the people that want to participate in that. And sometimes we need that just for the wake up, because we got a little stagnant, but that's it. So go out and play, and I'll see you next Saturday, right? This coming Saturday, sorry. Yeah. This coming Saturday for
solo this Saturday too.
What's that?
You'll be solo this coming
Oh yes,
Saturday.
and I am doing solo this Saturday because Kimberly will be traveling, so I won't be able to handle the questions as easily at this point in time. So we'll see you Saturday for another episode. Stay tuned and check out all the daily podcast episodes that are going out. Thank you.